fit wherever. It depends on. I guess I don't define myself really.
Okay. 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome very, very much to Conversation. It's a great, distinct privilege and honor to be able to welcome to the program Ashod Kassabian. He's a person that you're going to be able to find out over the course of this program is a man of great erudition, and he's also a man who understands very well the intricacies of information technology in a way that is very, very interesting, not only to the people that are involved directly in the niceties of developing information technology, but to the general society. He's going to help pass some of that on to us. And Ashod, welcome so very, very much to Conversations, Manhattan Neighborhood Network. I'm so glad to have you here.
Harold, it's my pleasure to be here.
Oh,
absolutely.
All right, fine. I think the best place for us to begin is, let's say, when were you born? Where were you born? Where are you from? What is your background? And then we'll get into talking about your very illustrious career and your interest intellectually. But what's your background? Where were you born and raised, young man?
I was born in Alexandria, Egypt.
Interesting.
In Egypt.
Interesting.
And of Armenian descent, parents of Armenian descent.
Doubly interesting, if I may. Yeah.
And thank you. And both my parents were born in Alexandria, Egypt as well. At the age of 3, we left Alexandria to go to Cairo and lived in Cairo until age of 16, still in Egypt.
And took education there and so on?
In Cairo, I went to actually the first three years I was in a Franciscan nun school in Cairo. And then in an Armenian school for 3 years.
Right.
And then afterwards, the rest until 16, I went to Lycée Français du Caire.
French. Yeah, French.
School. Yes.
French. And
yes.
you had French language at the home?
Absolutely. In fact, well, not quite, because we were not allowed to speak French at home.
Is that why?
Because mixing languages, when you're in an environment where you speak 3-4 languages,
It gets confusing?
it becomes kind of the lazy thing to do is to any word you pick up from a language, from another language, you bring it.
Yeah.
So by sticking to one language in one environment, and it was a smart move from my father. He really insisted that we don't, while we're speaking Armenian, we don't bring French words in there. And while we're speaking French, we don't bring Armenian.
It's confusing enough with one.
It sure is.
You get, I think there's about 7,000 languages they've identified.
Yeah.
But and speaking of your father and this setting, your family setting, what was the family? Because you're of a great intellectual prowess and so forth, was it encouraging of intellectual and thinking
very
and so
much
forth?
so.
And
it was
the family setting sometimes is more important than the educational content of the institutions and everything.
It's true.
Yeah.
There's a subtle environment which, by example, you follow, and when you follow that environment, then you don't have, you know that you're inclined to go in that direction. Absolutely.
Right.
What's interesting also is being Armenian. We are sometimes in a, like here in New York, when people think because I was born in Egypt, I'm automatically Muslim. And we have high respect for Muslims, but we grew up as Christians. And not only that, but Armenia, way back, the first nation to become Christian. They were in the Crusades, worked for years helping the Crusades, and later, when Christ was born, not born, when later on after Christ's death, there were 2 of his disciples went to Armenia way back then. And so it had a lot of fervor for Christianity way back. Of course, things have changed, but even today is the 7th of January, and we believe that it's the Epiphany. Christ was born on the 7th of January.
Fully.
So today was the day to go and celebrate it.
So that's very good. That's very good, timely that we were doing that. Also, they've had a lot of difficulty with, in just more recently, because there was a great deal of something some people have said almost onto what was like a Holocaust.
Oh yes,
in the
of course,
case of
it's
Turkey,
very sad.
And that's an issue that still has political
it's loaded
now, does
it's
it
loaded,
not?
absolutely. I personally respect people for who they are, but when it comes to the history, so I I can speak and have friends of Muslim descent. That's not an issue for me. But way back, in 2 times, over 2 million Armenians were killed actually, and in Turkey.
Yes.
And what's the story is that the land people move like their ownership of the land. After a while, other people take it over. Ottoman Empire, the Turks took over. So Armenians survived for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Correct.
In their own environment, but they spoke Armenia in a Turkish environment. So there was some issues there, and of course there's always issue about recognizing probably cost of having to pay back, and who knows other reasons.
It's still an issue. I know that.
Sure.
But it's got a great tradition and so forth. And but the family was encouraging intellectually and so forth.
Oh, very much so.
And you were
very much so.
They took pains for you to get to your education in a serious way. Yeah.
Sometimes too serious. That was
serious.
I was brutally serious sometimes.
Yeah, right,
but
right.
yes, the French system is very actually quite precise in terms of grammar and not making spelling mistakes and being aware of quite a few areas of in detail of geography, physics, history, of course, math, and several languages. So when I went to school in Cairo, I was studying, besides French, I was studying Arabic and English as well. And later, when we moved to France, actually I started taking Italian, but there was not enough time for to get so I switched to Armenian as well as Arabic as additional languages besides English and French. I was credited for all those languages in the system, which was interesting in French when I got my baccalaureate, the first one and the second one.
I'm going to tell you really quick. When I was a young man, I was crazily Val-d'Ari wanting to travel and so forth. Went to Europe with practically no money as a student. Hitchhiked, and hitchhiked all through Europe, youth hostels and whatnot. And then instead of going back to term at the turn of the year, I said, I'm going to go out to the Middle East. I'm going to hitchhike. And I was so foolish. I'll tell you how foolish I was. I did not write home for any additional money for 6 months that I was going to extend my stay. And I hitchhiked. Anyway, that's another story. But I managed to survive.
Where did you hitchhike?
I hitchhiked out down through Greece and Turkey and went into Turkey. And I came and I was in Turkey. I got a ride where the fellow was on his way to Istanbul. No, on his way to Tehran. He was Armenian.
Is that right?
Of a background. And he had a very good, not just a truck. It was a real business-like thing he was doing, taking it. And he told me, he was speaking to me in ideogrammatic English, like we're doing now. And he told me he could speak ideogrammatically 24 languages.
Wow, that's a record.
Isn't that something?
That's amazing.
How many can you get in there without getting it very confused? You brought that up before.
Yes, I am not there, far from that. My son is getting there, but he's not.
Oh, right,
yes.
But anyway, that's just a sidebar.
Of course,
thing,
that's interesting.
But Esconderone and that kind of stuff. Yes. But anyway, so now you have a great interest.
I wouldn't hitchhike anymore.
But when you're young, you don't think about it.
Things were different.
All kinds of crazy things I wouldn't think about doing now.
People used to hitchhike then.
Young men are just crazy, aren't they? They go out and do all kinds of crazy things and push the envelope.
I have to give credit to my son. He went.
And women, I should say.
That's true too, and it's even harder for women in many ways. My son Armen, he wanted to teach English as a foreign language. So on his own, he interacted with the French consulate on Skype, and he got a job to go for a whole year in Martinique. So he was teaching English while he was studying at the same time. He came back. Then he managed on his own to get a Fulbright scholarship to go to Brazil. And in Brazil, while he was teaching English to foreign students in college level, he went by bicycle to, he did like 1,200 miles by bicycle, and they call it they sleep at friends' places. And really on a budget.
Yeah, they used to have a thing called hostels. They used to have hostels.
No, not even hostels. No, this is hostels is like 20, 30 years ago. Now they're doing sleep couch.
Sleep couch. Sleep on a couch.
at someone's couch. Someone's couch. There are websites where they facilitate that.
Yeah.
And he went all the way to Argentina, came back
On a bike.
on a bicycle. Yes.
Wow, that's really something.
And I have to give him
it's good physical exercise.
Absolutely,
you know,
and he speaks Portuguese. He learned it on right there.
You're singing the praises of your son. You
Yes,
think your
absolutely.
son is special?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, strange. No, I'm making a joke. I'm making a joke.
I know.
Particularly at the grandchildren.
Of course,
let the grandmothers talk about the grandchildren. Yeah. Anyway, you're an academic. You're very, very understanding. You've done mathematics. You're formal education. Mathematically, you did mathematics and so on. And we want to get down to talk about the internet and the development of information technology that you have a special understanding of, that we want to help convey to the audience.
Sure,
because
I'll be glad to.
Of the moment, it seems to me the internet is such a major thing that's just come onto our scene just recently and has absolutely staggering implications to the human condition. And you understand a good deal of that.
A moment
and can
ago,
help us understand it. Yeah.
Absolutely. A moment ago, we were talking of a quantum leap.
Yes.
And we're talking of other terminologies borrowed from science to describe activities, elements, events which happen faster or different pace. One exponential is another word.
Yeah.
But both quantum leap and exponential are referred to a jump, a very high jump, in a sudden way.
Yeah.
In one case, it's a curve, but even exponential, it means jumping from one level to the other level.
But I think
fast.
Exponential goes beyond hyperbolic curve, no?
Technically, yes, but all depends on the parameters, because you can have an exponential curve which is one way below or above the parabolic, but they both refer about an extreme change.
All right, yeah.
And no doubt that there has been in the last 20, 30 years an extreme change happening in technology.
I wonder if I could introduce another thought out of archaeology, and that's called Stephen Jay Gould and Niles Eldridge, and it's called Punctuated Equilibrium in Understanding the Evolutionary Process. Mm-hmm. Is there any point in our trying to correlate
I think so.
Things like evolution and exponential mathematical understanding, information technology, in terms of qualitative transformative change at certain moments?
Very much so. Yeah. I'm going to give you an example of that. Is apparently during the war, when a lot more men went to war and women were helping but behind the scene, but not in the war, there was more need for boys being born than girls. And somehow nature understood that, and you can go and look at the statistics. That there has been more boys born during war times, Second World War for instance, than the standard maybe 48, 52% usually. But suddenly, I don't know the exact numbers, but there have been like 55, 54% perhaps of boys being born to replenish, to bring back the equilibrium.
You think that's happening by natural?
I think that I have no doubt. There is a higher intelligence.
It's not consciously induced prejudices or something that the human beings have or something. I'm just.
If you can fool statistics, you can fool statistics, you can maybe come up with book numbers. But if the numbers are accurate, then it's beyond fooling. So that's the truth.
But what we're getting at is
nature. Understanding that there is a change happening out there, and nature replenishing, adjusting. And I think that even things like kids needing Ritalin and having Ritalin is given because people are jumping and moving, and there's hyperactivity. There is a tendency somehow nature to prepare us for the new generation, so the kids are born with more tools of ability to focus on many things at the same time, to multi-focus, and their thinking is different, they may I believe that there is an adaptation happening
Okay,
already.
That's
it's
very
nature adapting in reverse to the new realities.
That's very, very interesting.
And the equipment
indeed,
and the same way.
Yeah. But when you're talking about a qualitative, well, there's always been change and things grow linearly or something or arithmetically, through time and that. But then there's periods of qualitative change. Do you think we're living in a time of that the qualitative change that we're going through now? We were talking before the tape started rolling that apparently it seems science is telling us this Homo sapiens species evolved
200,000.
about 200,000 years through a process
Yes.
out of Homo erectus.
Correct.
I thought it
There's
was
different
Homo
levels.
habilis,
Yes.
Homo erectus. And so it's 10,000 generations.
Right.
In a sense, 20
Right.
years a generation,
Right.
more or less,
Right.
something like that.
Right.
So is there something about this particular time that isn't just a time of political change or in industrial policy or a tax cut or a political party or something like that, but almost has to be seen in punctuated equilibrium, in almost closing quotes on 200,000 years of our existence in the universe in a qualitative sense that is comparable to almost emergence of a new way of being or species, or is that reaching too far for mystical or something like that?
I strongly believe in what you're saying.
That it is that kind of a time of qualitative change in our lifetime.
Yes,
we're saying in our life, in 10,000
yes,
generations, in our lifetime is a time of qualitatively different transformation of the human condition than all of history.
Correct.
That's a major thing for us to get our mind around.
I have no doubt that that's happening.
Okay.
But there are different languages to express the same thing.
Yes, please. And a lot of your arithmetic.
And different places to look into those shifts. One is that the consciousness, human consciousness, is evolving.
Yes.
I have no doubt about it. And things which used to be considered as esoteric or very unreachable, suddenly we have access to it much easier suddenly.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing in a different language the same thing you're saying, and I'm referring to, for instance, sometimes the scientific word is kind of stuck and the people are aware of it before because they don't have they didn't go to, I'm referring to, for instance, in hospitals 10, 20 years ago, it would have been unthinkable to have a meditation, to use groups would fight through meditation the cancer. I would make the remission or push it away in part of as a group, but people were asking for it, and little by little the hospital realized, sometimes not even understanding or wanting to do it, that they had to offer alternative ways, mental ways to complement the existing chemo or whatever, So that's one example. The other area.
That's an important development.
The other example.
Alternative medicine, meditation, and things like that.
Very powerful.
Are having a new.
And it's not coming always from the scientific end, because they're kind of stuck in their old ways sometimes, but gradually even they are coming.
Do you think a general thing is that you're in a pattern, people get used to that, and you've got reified. There are institutions that are reified in one context. Like, I
give you an example, for instance.
Okay, you give an example.
Several examples. I took, about 15 years ago, I took a class from The Way of the Shaman on shamanism.
Okay.
By the man who wrote the book on shamanism. And to my surprise, it was a 2-day class there were quite a few students who were anesthesiologists and nurses, not just the traditional artists, creative people, but people. I was really surprised. That's one small example. The other example, for me more personally, I got involved, is past life. Past life used to be something as a theory, you talk about it. The Indians in India were believing in it as reincarnation.
Yes, right.
But suddenly, the shift of consciousness, I believe, happened in the last 20, 30 years, 20 years, that one can access to the past life so much easier and faster than it used to be. So it's no longer an abstract concept anymore.
Edgar Casey.
Absolutely.
Or you had, we talked Seth.
And
Jane Roberts. With the
channeling
Seth,
Edgar Casey's were the exceptional people who would do it. Very few. But nowadays, if you relax someone enough and they flow with it, they can have access to the same kind of information and access to internally visualizing, non-provable most of the time, but experiences which explain perhaps what some of their patterns in this life, past experiences I'm talking about,
and those things can be incorporated into a comprehensive understanding of what's going on.
Correct.
It can be inclusive, not of one particular aspect of it, but of the big whole change that's going on.
Absolutely.
And getting a hold of what's going on. What's it all about, Alfie, kind of question.
Absolutely. And that comes back to the mystical component we talked here.
Or scientific.
Or scientific, blending. Some of the, like the Einsteins out there were highly mystical people. Bohr, they really realized the complexity of the ultimate science and mysticism reaching each other. But right now, the average doctor out there who is trained in schools, they would fight. I went on the Upper East Side, one of the top endocrinologist doctor a few years back, and I did the mistake. Undoctrine. Yes, my ex-wife, she used to drive me really upset sometimes. So she said, "Oh, you have go and have your."
That drive you crazy?
Only one.
Shocked.
Only one.
I don't think it's ever happened before. Making a joke,
I know.
And both sides of that equation.
So to keep her happy, I said, "I'll go and see this endocrinologist who is a specialist." It turns out he did all the tests and I was 100% okay. But I did the mistake of saying, the endocrine system is connected to the aura and the chakras. Do you realize the chakras? He got so mad. He was upset with me. He practically kicked me out of his room. Chakras have nothing to do with endocrine system.
Yeah, you got all these systems. And then you got religious systems and things like that people got a sense of identity. That's important. But again, the idea that we're coming to a qualitative transformation. And one of the tyrannies of television is it's only got so much time. I could talk to you 24 hours with no problem at all.
Absolutely.
But we got to get on because you've done a great deal of work in terms of we're in video now, we're in television, we're in information technology, and we want to talk some about that and share some of your understanding of it because you've been involved on the very cutting edge of a great deal of information technology that is directly relevant to the information technology writ large in the world.
It's true.
Yeah.
What's interesting is after finishing high school and beginning of the high school level in France is first, second, third year college level in America. Actually, I went to McGill in Montreal and I became an electrical engineer.
Okay.
And but it turns out that my love was photography. And even though I didn't go to schools really for photography with some classes at night, I ended up becoming a commercial photographer for 30 years, 25 years. Commercial photographer specializing in internal.
What did you use?
No, view cameras, mostly view cameras.
What's a view camera?
Upside down, the old-fashioned way.
Like that,
you put plate in there, actually transparencies. And I did work for mostly architects, interior designers, magazines, and traveled Toronto, traveled all over the United States, and mostly. It really is an art form, and that's interesting because I didn't want to get into it initially because I thought photography, click, 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 but my images would take hours of work with a team of people.
Really?
From styling to changing the environment, even though it's an interior for a magazine, I would shift things around to make it look better, to make it more effective, especially the lenses we use. I used a wide angle. So that was a fascinating, it's an art form, but also it's a business. You have to finish in time. You have to give an estimate, stick to the estimate, and do it again and again.
There are photographers, and then there are photographers. Stiglitz was pretty good.
Oh, he's great. Different word, but Stiglitz, I highly respect Stiglitz. Yes.
Oh, anyway,
black and white days, and but this was transparency, view camera, and different. Yes.
So, but you've also picked up on things as it relates to video and to the whole internet too. You understand it in a unique kind of way. I think
that's the way we met. Actually, I used to have at NYPC, New York PC User Group.
That's right.
A streaming media
that
group.
was a very good thing you were trying to
initiate. You came with Gloria several times
Gloria
there.
Messer.
Yes.
Yeah, bless her. Yeah,
God bless her. I just saw her a second ago.
She was here. Yeah.
Absolutely.
At MNN, that's where we're taping now.
Now, yes,
MNN
of course.
Yeah.
So actually, what happened was my engineering background actually helped me all the way through. Whether I'm doing the bookkeeping for the business, making sure the numbers are running well, and eventually I started getting more interested in video editing. Premiere Pro was my favorite one, rather than
And you came to know the various systems that were coming along.
I have to follow them. I spend a lot of nights every week going to user groups and very closely seeing what's the cutting edge tools out there and what each one is doing, and streaming media, of course.
And enjoying doing
I love what I'm doing.
You enjoyed learning that learning curve, as they would call
absolutely.
Okay.
Not heavy books learning, but applying it. I'm going reading to applying it, applied learning. Absolutely.
As your engineering background.
And still keep that sensibility of doing what was effective, what's appropriate, what's flows, what's elegant as well. So grace as well as solid grounding
very
is
important. The use of information and the information environment is shaping, it seems to me, because it's not only information technology, it's now moving into robotics.
Absolutely.
And into all kinds of things that is affecting virtually everything, is it not?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just read something about robotics, very interesting recently. Google, who purchased something like 300-400 companies a year.
Yeah,
they're amazing. They purchased a company who had already a contract with the defense for having robotic mule, during wartime to send the mule to transport something from one place to the other rather than a human. Carrying weight and being safe and non-human. But apparently it was very noisy. So the army, even though they were giving an order, I think they stopped the order and just read it about it in BBC actually. And it was too noisy. It was making too much noise.
Well,
so here's a robot,
3-in-1 oil or
but you have to put more. Like they bought it. It was there. But the reason I'm bringing Google in the picture is that I have been quite involved with doing websites, working with large company, being one of the 100 developers working behind the scene for one website, for instance, and having my specialty in it. And one of the areas of extreme interest I've had is usability.
Okay, spell it out.
And usability is how usable, intuitive is not only a website, but not only a software,
a program,
but any object we create, any object. It could be this timer here. It could be a phone. It could be the old-fashioned remotes for your VCR.
Is that called design? Or is it different than design?
They have different terms. Human engineering. It's called. The more modern term right now is usability, and it's how you make that new creation, whether it's software, whether it's website, whether it's signage, how you make it more effective. And for instance,
is it led by marketable? The market implications come into the overall process.
Absolutely, it's about selling. It's about also about information connection, communicating. I'll give you a couple of examples. Recently, I went to, not related to website, but I'll come there. Hospital apparently had major hospital had issues with their signage, and people were getting lost, and they kept on asking how to go about it. So they hired a team of top-level usability experts, and they put the signs, created the size. They actually initially you go and ask questions, you do testing, you find out why it's not working, why people are getting lost, and then they came up with a solution which made the whole process of circulating through the hospital much easier. It may be brochures also part of it. Definitely the signage. So these were signage, complete change. The same, interestingly, with election material.
Well,
I'm not talking one side or the other.
You don't want to be messing with the way in which the final result comes out.
No, I'm not going to go there. I have to remain neutral. That's part of it. I would never dare to do that.
No, but that would have implications to marketing patterns
it's
and big contracts and things.
Absolutely. It's all related to that. So just changing sometimes the format, and that's part of usability in terms of reaching your final intention. The format of taking a certain number of items, and instead of writing it in one after the other in a block setting, putting it in a bullet, for instance, changing the size and the space between the word.
Well, isn't that part of design?
It is, but design
linked with public relations or marketing?
Absolutely.
No. Okay,
these are all highly connected.
Yeah, right.
But there is a science which the new approach. Many times the designer is doing a design without checking the results.
That would be not wise.
But often it's done that way.
Yeah, I know. You're right.
This becomes the creative artist doing their thing.
Where angels fear to tread, I think.
You want to check how it's effective. You want to check if your design is reaching its intention.
Okay.
Unless you're a crazy artist, you want to do a beautiful work.
There are some of those.
Yes.
They've done crazy things, but God
and
bless
it worked,
them all.
and they sold their paintings, some of them for a lot of money, you know.
Right,
but the rest is the intention is communicating.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you communicate.
And that ultimately is coming around to understanding as best we can this qualitative, the reality of the extended consciousness that our technology is on this qualitative transformation that may be actually even at a species level. We may be coming to the end of 200,000 years of our liaison in the universe up the evolutionary line to a level transcendent to what we've been. There were progenitors to where we are now 4 million years ago, Lucy and so forth. There were, and then it comes to a time where there's change. We may be coming into a new relationship to the universe than that which we've been in for 200,000 years of sociological political development, and that it's now coming to where I don't want to beat a dead horse if it's not already dead, but punctuated. The terms are coming there to where we're likely to come into a new relationship in the universe at a species level, not just as a political party or a particular phase of history like the French Revolution or something.
You are a philosopher.
I don't know.
And you're bringing up in that context an issue of ethics. I'm thinking to be more specific, I'm thinking of referring, as I'm listening to you, of cloning.
Well, I hadn't thought of that, but you could.
It's part of the whole evolution. The next thing is ethics gets in there, that you want to clone only the kind of, not just sheep, but people you want.
Right.
And it's, I have to give credit to China. In 20, 30 years, in 30 years, they've done a miracle.
Yes.
They have done a miracle.
Yeah.
No other, I would say that in itself is an achievement.
Now, who's done the miracle? In
China.
In what regard? In terms of their overall economy, their overall political, economic development?
All the above.
Okay.
All the above.
Okay.
They have done a miracle of achieving or changing a whole society from agrarian to a different environment.
Well, collectively, the society has gone through that.
Amazing.
No, collectively, the human society has gone through that.
And
containerization, all kinds of things that have come along that have built this world.
Yes.
That is the thing is it's some qualitative confirmation, not just a quantitative.
Right.
The building of a new line of an automobile bumper or something like that would be meaningful to the people putting a market or project out on the product. But that we're at a time that is qualitatively new. It's like how the new appears. And how do we get at that in order to try and understand what is going on as a result of it's not your normal period of time historically is what I'm trying to get at.
I have no doubt what you're saying. I would say first America, in 100 years ourselves here, we've done what took 1,000 years for Europe to do, and in a way we didn't have the baggage and the history,
right.
So we're freer, more flexible, and agile.
In that, because people get
that's admirable.
People get addicted to their institutions, their thoughts, their religious patterns, their reified institutions, their thinking, and all that, and they do
limited.
They become limited. And we're caught up in a understanding of the world. One which would be advanced by some is the weapon systems have led the political process. Whoever's had the advantage in terms of weapons has been able to establish the beginnings of what was to become political legitimacy by one group, because they had the power to overcome another and set up soldiers and then PR and politics and all that.
Yes.
And that those weapons now, do you think it's the case? I'd ask you as a citizen, but they've become now, apparently, at the level of capability, it's an ontology. It's not the reality necessarily, but it's a capability that if they're unleashed in a spasm of hatred, which has been the lot or the want of the Homo sapiens species throughout all of its history by and large, punctuated by some periods of peace and so forth, but it's been, if they were to be unleashed, it would mean, apparently from the modeling can be trusted or not, it would mean the end of the entire Homo sapien species.
How do you jump to that? Why do you jump to that conclusion?
No, I'm saying there is modeling that indicates that. That the weapon systems are so monumentally destructive that they have the ability, if they were to be unleashed in a spasm of mass irrational hatred, that they would be able to eliminate the Homo sapiens species. Do you think that is the case objectively? There is modeling that indicates that is the case.
I'm going to answer you a weird...
That would be a new ontologic reality.
I used to go to a Qigong classes.
Yeah, Qigong, yeah. Mm.
And a Qigong master, who is a Taoist priest, came from Taiwan. Mm-hmm. Through an interpreter, I asked him that question. This was after 9/11.
Which question did you ask?
After 9/11, I said, there is many people who predict an ending of things as we know.
No, that's a different thing than
I talked of arms, and I thought you were referring to arms and ending of an evolutionary ending of the Homo sapien as we know them.
No, the species, physical is elimination of the entire species.
Isn't that some kind of drastic change?
We weren't able to
That's the model.
We weren't able to do that in the Second World War, were we? We were
Correct.
trying.
We didn't have the power to do it.
We were not ontologically
we were not advanced.
The capability that we now have, and that makes a different ontology, a different material reality.
So I'm answering my understanding, because many people are predicting that, of course.
No,
I'm talking at different levels. You're talking about a modeling level.
I'm talking about capability.
Potential. You're talking of potential.
Yeah, but it's existent potential, not just in some theoretical thing you project 200 years of research to get to. We're there. Is the difference.
Look, today, this morning, we find out that, I'll come back to what we're talking. Yeah. We find out that North Korea claims that they have tested on a small quantity of hydrogen bomb.
Really? Okay.
Today. Yeah. Even though the rest of us are saying, well, it's unlikely, it was something else, but they want us to believe. But they're getting better and better at it. So even if it's not 100% true, they're in that direction. Mm-hmm. And smaller means more compact, means you can put it on a warhead and you can send it as well. And they have the capability. So it may not be today, but obviously this is one small example, and there are many other parallel. Yeah. And probably they're looking for people to sell it to.
Well, there probably would be a market somewhere.
Absolutely.
And the warring still goes on.
Yes.
The old ideas that they're clinging that we cannot buy this, we can't, is there.
That's the.
Again, I come back. In the Second World War, we were trying as a species. We were limited in our capability.
Absolutely.
that is no longer the case in terms of what exists
Yes.
in the reality now.
Absolutely.
So that's a qualitatively different situation than that we're going to wipe out 100 million people, but the species is going to continue.
I personally don't think it's going to be all finished, but it's going to be. If it happened, it's going to affect, of course, a sizable proportion of humanity.
Well, this modeling would say that there wouldn't be a single human being left.
Let me give you an answer from what this bringing that issue I asked to this Taoist priest. Now, Taoist priests are in our culture. Looking at the future is kind of forbidden. It's kind of, especially the older ways of looking at it was like, oh, that's occult, you're not allowed to do that. But many other cultures predicting or preparing themselves for possibility of things happening in the future is quite acceptable. It's part of their religion. And I believe way back it used to be part of our way of looking religions as well.
Well,
anyway, so what he was saying, yes, we too, I don't want to say predict, that we see that that's the same, different words, but saying the same thing. An end is probable to happen, but we are pushing it away and away all the time.
Well,
that's what he said was an interesting concept.
That's an interesting concept. Because on the other hand, there might be a change in the material reality that is changing the conditions under which people have thought they had to fight. It may be that the capability of providing for everyone in a way which can lead to a liberation of everyone in a way that has never been possible, the reality of realpolitik is that for one to win, another has to lose. There's not nearly enough. There's scarcity.
Of course.
Will we ever get to where there will be enough for that and the ecology? It seems to me we're being tested that way.
Yes.
And that there's a capability on the living side for the liberation of a whole process of which we are a part, which is the analog to the destructive capability that is in both cases unique in terms of historical development. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yes, okay. No doubt. And I'm showing this here
this device
because
is really
this device is part of it. Because part of the war in that kind of extreme situation is going to be scrambling your device so you cannot see. So because already it's happening on a smaller scale here, where all those having access to 10 million credit cards information, it's about practicing that kind of nasty stuff. And also scrambling means like preventing from one sending their equipment or their missile and destruction. The
or
others
maybe
are protecting.
The thing would be you could put that down to a haiku or something.
Yeah.
That we can either if suppose we have the capability of allowing every single human being to realize their absolute full healthful potential rather than being so limited by material lack of capability to develop, okay? The fact that so people are not able to realize their full potentiality, and that within an ecological order.
Yes.
And we get to that point, which we have never been in.
No.
It's always been not nearly enough. For me to win, you have to lose. Whoever's got the gun can control through power, and that we're coming to a time where we can either, let's say, liberate in a new kind of way the human society as a whole, or we can liberate it, or we can liberate, or we can annihilate it. In terms of what's developed now, in terms of evolutionary process. And that makes this a defining, a qualitatively different proposition in evolutionary terms, not just political terms or historical terms.
I'm listening to you, and what comes to my mind, some of the weaknesses as humans we have as greed.
Well, yeah.
And ego.
Yeah, right.
Overpowering, bullying.
Yes.
Not just the kid.
It's the history of
but
the world.
It has always been the history of the world.
But it's something different.
Is it going to stop? I doubt it.
You don't think so?
Why would it stop? It's part of the human options we have, and we failed, most of us.
Okay.
Many of us.
Well,
excesses.
Okay. Maybe I shouldn't
drinking.
have brought it up even.
So no. I think that's good too. It will be. I think in some level it's happening that the newer generation is not as bellicose. There's more peace-looking. There's more yoga and Tai Chi going on than boxing. You know, as an art form.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that if many of us are like that the rest of the world is like that.
Mm-hmm.
So out there'll be another, no name given, another country will be called, I want to grab this land, and I want to grab this land.
I can understand history is not the place to get examples,
Yeah, or my version of the same religion is better than your version, or there should be only one version, and only mine is right, not yours.
That's that's the history of mankind. I'm trying to say, what is it that can make us get into another way of being in universe? We started is this just another period of history where we'll fight and we'll do that?
What do you think?
Or I think it's a time of qualitative coming to a new relationship in universe, which would probably be, if you can imagine humanity being able to realize its full genetic given potential and technological capability in a way where it would be like a gigantic jam session. And they're playing, everybody's hitting their note perfectly right, and it's coming to a point where there is like a puncture, there is 100 trillion cells in a human organism. Every cell matters. Every cell is an individuality. Every cell is connected to every other cell as a system. Okay?
I'm listening to you.
Okay.
And my instinct says that I know you for perhaps 20 years now.
I guess, yeah, we go with
about
that.
18, 20 years.
Mm.
And you have done an hour, 5 times a week of these programs, opening the mind, helping people to see beyond their own view.
We're trying to understand.
Understand and share, and share your gift. I think you have a gift there.
I don't know.
I believe so.
Mm.
And share it with those who are willing to listen. And you have followers out there, and people who really appreciate it. And you're a kind, giving, caring person in your own way. But I don't think that it's easy for us to project who we are for a larger circle, larger word. But I think out there'll be always the grabber, the ego, the one who wants more, and who is never satisfied. Not that that person can eat, or the bigger the house, the more.
No. In the fullest sense of the word.
Literally. Unfortunately, I think that there's less of that breed, but there's still enough, and there will always be enough to mess up things for everybody else.
Well, perhaps. I don't know what it's all about, but it may be a synergistic resonance is going to interaccommodate us to universe and that's going to and that would be the introduction of a new relationship to the broader cosmos that we've not had entry to, historically or evolutionarily, and we're about to become transcendent.
Look at Steve Jobs.
That may be the situation we were cursed or blessed to be born into.
I haven't read Aristotle, but I believe that he gave you an option of man is pulled with horses, black and white horses.
Yeah, right.
And
I think
he
so.
chooses.
He had a few good ideas.
He has the option of choosing the white or the black. You know. So this is the choices. All religions talk about options and choices we make. So that's part of we're given all the options, and it's up to us to choose the right one and sometimes not easy, but we have to stick to it.
I guess we'll be talking about these things for a long time. Now,
I think so.
You've been involved. Now you've got a thing there and something else that you could demonstrate your work. I'm sorry I got off on this little.
No, this is fascinating. This is fascinating. I love it. Are you kidding?
You've been involved with some of the major corporations and some of the major cybernetic developments and video and so forth.
Yes.
So maybe you could share some of that with us and what you think the more short-term maybe possibilities for new breakthroughs that we can see coming from the extension of technological capability of information.
Now you got me hooked into this conversation. Before we go there, I would like to just bring one interesting person. Just a couple of days ago, they started showing Steve Jobs.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
And I was fascinated, where I know his respect for traditional minimalism and Buddhist type of meditation, and
Yes.
such good quality of
Yes.
some of the things we said. But at the same time, some of the other lesser pleasant aspects of the person came out in that presentation. I don't know. Did you have a chance to see that?
I haven't seen it yet, but I see it's about now. Yeah.
And it's interesting contradiction that here's someone who has this gentle aspects of him, where millions and millions of people loved him and benefited it, and really used his I want to give him credit. Vision, and he made it happen.
Yes, absolutely.
He made it happen.
Spirit, and everything.
But at the same time, he had many flaws, and some of them quite not very nice things about him. So what I'm saying is that it's part of human nature. We can't be all Gandhis, or I guess, or Buddhas, or kind and caring only.
You may have something there.
So here is someone who gave so much, but also some of the negative things. I don't want to
fair enough.
So it's part of human nature. I'm going to do an attempt here.
Okay,
and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Okay.
But what I'm going to say is that many of us have smartphones.
Yeah, right.
And
amazing.
And it's kind of like in the old days, Fortran, I used to have a keyboard and punch the cards and send it to the IBM computer and have it work. In a way, that same concept is happening here, where our smartphone is a terminal. Pretty smart, but it's using a lot more smartness through the internet, where huge computers are instantly figuring out where I am on the road, where's the best options I have, if there's traffic, and feeding me information where by itself, isolated, my tool cannot do it. So it's really leveraging a lot more behind the scene.
I see, yes. Right.
So that's, for me, fascinating, but also how the tool itself, the smartphone, is getting more and more usable, easy to use.
Yes.
Now, there's always a conflict between the smartphone carrier like Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile, and they have their own interest.
Yes.
So until now, I've been using one of those carriers for years and years, and being frustrated because I've done a lot of development. Being frustrated,
you sure have,
that they have to monetize more than the $60 or so I'm spending on a monthly basis, or $80. They have to really, so they put all kind of layers to make more out of it.
Yes, right.
And those layers slow us down. Frustrating. It's items I have no intention of using, but I'm stuck with it. So I want to be able to not have to deal with that. And recently, I bought a smartphone which is unlocked, an Android which is unlocked.
Okay.
And locked means that the carrier have no permission to lock me and put their own software and mess it up.
So that's a big change.
It's a great change for me.
And for the world?
I don't think the world is ready to go there for some reason. I think that's what I'm curious.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I'm curious to know why Google is not. I'm using a Google product.
Yeah.
I bought it directly from Google. This Nexus 6P, and my experience is so much more fluent than the previous Samsung I had from a major carrier. And I really like this unlocked version, but I have to play with it more, and I don't know if they intend to compete straight with this phone with iPhone. I don't think they're ready for it. I still can't figure out. I'm curious to know, but I really enjoy working with this here. So this is one, and let me see, since I'm supposed to be connected here, let me see if I can. No, the experience is not the same. It's very interesting. Let me see.
We're going to try
because
and bring
the
that
same
up, and they can come in on
the
that.
same the same website doesn't look as good here. That I've never checked this site here. So let me see if I can get it here.
Okay, you're trying to get a site. Okay, good. Yeah, by
No.
all means, let's see if we can get that. They could come in at the tight on the camera.
No, it worked before, but it's not anymore. All right, what's happening here is that I had a plugin with Flash, my Adobe Flash, and the Adobe Flash plugin works on a regular desktop, but doesn't
Okay.
work on
Oh, I see,
for
okay.
security reasons. It doesn't work here, so I can't give this presentation.
Oh,
this
that
part
thing.
here.
That way you
So
were
the
doing.
only way, yeah, because when we saw it before, it really worked really
And
well.
We did, yeah, right.
And from the control room
yeah.
has a desktop, and the desktop you can have Flash in there,
Yeah,
but to protect you, both a tablets and the smartphones, they are not allowing you to have Flash.
I
so
see, yeah.
the Flash material is not working here.
But we've only got a couple minutes left.
Okay.
So fill us in. What is the implication? What you're going to show and everything, and what is your overall assumption about mankind's liaison with all this extended technology that's before us? Are you optimistic, pessimistic for the human prospect?
I think we have a lot more choices than ever before.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And that's a challenge for many of us who
Yeah.
really have to do more editing, elimination.
Editing, elimination. Yeah. Okay.
Eliminate things
Yeah.
and choose.
Right.
It's in relationship just as much as in choosing your equipment. And
Right.
In New York, where shall I go on tonight? You know, there's so
Right.
many options.
Yes,
So
right, that's
sometimes
true. Yeah.
it gets like a challenge to the point that we can't always succeed in focusing and being content. So it's with more options and more possibilities, it becomes more of a challenge to make the right choices and stick to it and have a simple life and enjoy life.
Yes, can we
It's about
agree on
enjoying
something,
life.
Ashod? This is the most incredible, important, and interesting time to have been born into, as you and I have.
Of course.
This particular time,
Yes.
and I wouldn't have wanted to have been born into any other time in the
Yes.
past, or I don't know about the future, but this is a really interesting time
Yes.
in which to have been born and to consider the human condition, is it not?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, and you've helped us talk about that and everything, and you've done a great deal of work. It's so good and so interesting, and one of the tyrannies of television, you run out of time. We've run out of time for this particular program. We got to do more.
I could have continued for
25
longer.
hours?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Your pleasure having procession, a major fellow who's done
Thank you.
so much work. And thank you for coming in for all the work that you're doing. And we're going to have to do more, okay? More programming. Your pleasure to have the perceptions then of Ashod Kassabian, a major figure as you can see, and a great pleasure and honor to have been able to introduce you to him. So good to see you. We got to do more of this.
Thank you, Harold.
Okay, my
That's a
pleasure.
pleasure.
We're coming back again tomorrow. Please tune in then. And once again, Ashod, thank you very much for such a very
Appreciate it.
interesting and well-led life that
Thank you.
continues in high gear. Thank you.
Thank you, Harold. Appreciate it. This was fun.
Yeah,
really
well,
enjoyed
it was.
this.
The trouble is to get off on things, you know.
Yes,
and that's
yes.
good, but that's okay.
And we resolved all the problems of humanity.
Yeah.
On the future.
There's a couple left. There's a couple,
Couple of
left.
left.
Yeah, you brought them to my attention. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That is it. We should be out now. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So I got off on my own tangent there. That
No,
didn't
I
work,
loved it.
huh? That didn't work.
No,
huh?
you know what happens? It's showing the flash is blocked.
Ah.
But there, when we saw the sample, it worked.